and they have a great cafe down there, a great team. It made sense that we teamed up with them to launch the Irish Chefs Manifesto, which we did over a year ago now. And obviously through COVID, a lot of plans that we had for this year were parked, but we have exciting plans for next year coming in on that. So I'll introduce you to JB. So JB heads up the team in Grow HQ, and he can tell a bit about what they're doing there and in terms of the Chefs Manifesto, how that works together.
So yeah, hi everyone. So I'm JB, the head chef here in Grow HQ. So Grow HQ is the home of GRY. So GRY became a big organization. GRY exists for 12 years now, and it's really just to try to inspire people to grow their own food. And they've been proven if people grow just 2% of their own food, that bring what we call here the food empathy. It's just the understanding where the food comes from and the care of where the food comes from. And here, so we decided to go all in here. And so all the veg and we're cooking on site, which represents about 90% of what I'm serving on the plate, grows here on site. And in the boom of before COVID and before all that, we were serving over 200 customers a day in that concept on a 3-acre ground. Like, so it is doable. And what I would say, like, then with the link of, as chefs, we link of the farm and fork, as you were saying, like, and we, like, customers, people didn't decide to have an avocado on their plates. That's what didn't happen. Chefs told them to put an avocado on their plates. And so we are there to send the trends as chefs and to bring, and to inspire people to do the right decision, an educated decision to build a better food system, really. So that's us. And yeah.
Brilliant, thanks JB. And I think, as I said, we're going to introduce Paul Newman. So Paul basically heads up a team of the SCG2 Advocacy Hub, who are responsible for everything around the Chefs Manifesto, and I suppose really pushing us to really, for us as chefs, working with Paul over the last few years has really, for me personally, has made me sit back and think really about what a better food system is, and to basically step up and you know, live up to responsibilities that we have as chefs in implementing a better food system globally, and also here in Ireland and in our own kitchens. I said I met Paul probably 3 years ago, and it really, while sustainability for me was always something fresh in my mind, I always pushed for it. Meeting Paul and the Chefs Manifesto actually focused me more on actual changes that can be made.
Go on the chat and introduce yourself. It would be great to kind of just see who's here. So I see that there's people from Hong Kong right through to Colombia and everywhere in between. So it's super great to have such a diverse group of people dialing in. And so yeah, so I'm going to take you through a little bit of a snapshot at a high level on what are some of the advocacy moments and opportunities. And I always like to do these updates with a little bit of a snapshot, just really about some key statistics. And I do this because often what I find is that people don't necessarily understand what's going on in the world at the level and how our food system is being impacted, and why that has the outputs and challenges that it has. So Barbara, we'll go to the next slide. So one of the key things that I always like to start on is that even though we're working on zero hunger, we don't have a problem of actually enough food. There is actually enough food to feed everyone on the planet. We actually grow enough food to feed 1.5 times the population. And one of the challenges is that that food is wasted. It also isn't distributed equally. Within that food system, though, there are many things that are broken. And one of the big challenges is that our food system is very undiverse. And so at the moment, 4 crops are contributing to 60% of the calories we consume. And they're very much starchy crops, which don't necessarily give us the nutrient density or the nutrients that we need. And so this is a real challenge. And so the plant biodiversity is something that we talk a little bit about, because there's 30,000 edible plant species around the world. And out of that, we're just eating 150 crops. And so if you think about that, we're just really just scraping the surface on what goes into our food. And as chefs, that's like limiting to the back corner of the pantry. It's kind of like saying we're just going to play with a very small amount of ingredients of all the potential there. And I know that there's many chefs that are on this call and that have been involved in the Chefs Manifesto that really try and stretch out from the core crops and try and look at alternatives that are better for people and better for planet. But this is something that we need to do more of. We need to change some of this, because what we see is that even though there is some declines in the population of undernourished people around the world, we still have too many people that are not nourished. And at the same time as we're seeing these small declines, we're also seeing this massive increase in the proportion of adults who are obese globally. So I think what this shows is that part of our challenges is fixing the problem, we're actually creating other problems. There's lots of unintended consequences. And so this leads to 1 in 3 people suffering from malnutrition around the world. And so this is a real challenge for us, because with malnutrition, that impacts all kinds of things, from livelihoods to all kinds of different opportunities, from education and all other kinds of different areas. So this is something that just is some of the key challenges. We also know that food production is also a major contributor to climate change. It occupies 40% of global land use. It consumes 70% of fresh water, and it's producing 30% of greenhouse gas emissions. There was recently a report that came out in Science that was talking about that even if we cut many of our emissions from fuel and things like that, still without addressing the food system, we've got no chance of hitting the Paris Accord. And so food systems and how we address food systems are central to really a people and planet for everyone. So at the heart of the Sustainable Development Goals, which Conor mentioned, is food and agriculture. And there's 17 goals, if you've never heard of them before, that basically are a blueprint around sustainability that every world leader got together in 2015 and signed on to for 15 years to address some of the biggest challenges we all face. And these 17 goals create this framework that we use. And if you look at this, food and agriculture touches all of them. So you look at, if you think about education, you'll see that it's absolutely essential for learning, to be able to have nutritious food and the right food. Energy, much of our agricultural and food systems rely on fossil fuels. So how do we create clean energy? Life below the water, how do we work with fish and think about fish engagement with fish and oceans? So all kinds of areas here connect, not just SDG 2, which is around hunger and nutrition and agriculture. So the 17 goals, if you haven't seen them, are worth having a look at. They each have underneath each goal a set of targets. And this is a framework that governments obviously are looking at, but also private sector. There's many businesses now around the ESG, so environment, society, governance area, are really looking at frameworks which address some of the Sustainable Development Goals. They are this framework that the world has really adopted. And so it's really important to think from your business perspective, how can you do that? And the Chefs Manifesto created 8 thematic areas which come from these 17 goals, which help to attach how chefs can particularly make a difference. One of the things that's coming up in 2021 is the United Nations Food Systems Summit. And the Food Systems Summit is a summit that was called on by the Secretary General of the UN in last year. And so the summit is actually started now. And the summit was basically brought together to really raise ambition, to increase our understanding of the issues around the food system and set a course to radically transform this food system. And so even though this will be an event that has a meeting, and the hope is that it will be physical in Rome and New York, they're really trying to make this a people summit, a summit that crosses the globe. And so in every country of the world, there's going to be dialogues, there's going to be a range of activities that are happening. And part of that process is there's 5 action tracks that have been established. And these action tracks are basically looking at 5 key areas that intersect around food systems that are really important for us to look at game-changing ideas in. And so we're looking at areas like ensuring access to safe and nutritious food, shifting sustainable consumption patterns, boosting nature-positive production, advancing equitable livelihoods, and building resilience to vulnerability, shocks, and stresses. And so under each of these action tracks, they're looking at the moment for engagement, dialogue, ideas to basically bring in potential solutions that can help accelerate change at a global level. And so there's dialogues that are happening regularly. There's one tonight on action track 4. There's also lots of different opportunities in order to, there's lots of different opportunities that are happening for people to basically get involved. So the Food Systems Summit Dialogue are a standardized approach that enables people to come in and talk about food systems. And there's going to be toolkits to look at this. And this is something that maybe the Irish Action Hub can look at. We've been talking about it with the London Action Hub about how do we run some dialogues with chefs to actually address and think about how we can engage your voices into this Food Systems Summit. The other area that there is for people to get engaged is there's also where they're calling for food system heroes. And so essentially you can sign up and you can become a part of the summit where you'll be given information about what's going on, about what you can do, about where things are at. And so if you're interested in getting involved using your voice around this, this would be something worth thinking about. But the summit alongside the SDGs creates this real framework to take forward. And so if you want to follow, check them out on Food Systems on Twitter and Instagram. And you can also see the links there where you can find out more information about how to engage. But also feel free to chat to JB or Conor or myself or others about what questions you might have and how you can engage there. One of the other areas is that we're really building out is a conversation around good food for all. And what we've built with this is a platform which enables a way of talking about some of the challenges we face and the Zero Hunger frame. And it focuses on food. It shifts away from technical language to really a language which brings together diverse voices and talks about equity at the heart of the conversation and how do we build back better from COVID. And so this is something that we've created as a frame, and it's something that you might want to take a look at and see if you can use it in the way that you're talking about food and how you create good food for all. So I think we've got a video. Is that right, Barbara? No? Yes. Let's just watch this short video and see if that's going to work. Perfect. Thank you, Barbara. So we can send the link in the chat on where you can find that on YouTube. But essentially what the platform's about is it's kind of just talking about how we see good food and trying to really start this conversation of, well, what's in our food and how do we envisage food and what's the role that it plays? Because, you know, many people just see food as something that gives them energy, but food is also about love. It's also about culture. It saves lives. It drives economies. It's also begins with farmers. It's about it's nutritious. So all of these other elements. And so one of the things we've tried to do in this is really build out a conversation around good food. If you want to get involved, we have tools around this. There's all kinds of content, and you can reach out and we can try and send over some of the info on that. And, you know, we also have kind of tools around what you can do as a chef, as a farmer, as individuals, as advocates, around bringing this to life. And if you want to find out more, we're there on social media on Good Food for All /SDG2. And also there's a website there. So that just gives you a little snapshot of just some of the things that are happening from the advocacy front around the SDGs this year, some of the opportunities around the UN Food System Summit, Good Food for All. There is a lot of activity going on. And so if you're interested, please take a look at the Chefs Manifesto website, sign up for the newsletter, and we'll make sure that we give you a snapshot of that. So super excited to just see everyone introducing themselves in the chat. It's great to see people from so many different backgrounds, and thank you for all making the time to be with us. So Conor and JB, I'm going to hand back over to you guys. I think we're going to the kitchen, are we?
Brilliant, thanks for that, Paul. We're going to, JB is going to do a little cooking demo now shortly, but I also think it's worth noting, looking at Paul's presentation, and especially the video and stuff as well, is that food travels. Our food system is a global food system, and I think that as chefs sometimes we kind of work in our own silos and maybe not realize that what we do in one part of the globe or one part of our country or planet can affect others on the other side without us knowing it. And that video really brings that home when you see a global food system and the effects of a broken food system is having on climate change, on biodiversity, on people's livelihoods and so on. And it's really important to, I think, understand, and it took me a while to get my head around that as a chef as well. You know, local to me is always best, and of course it is, but food also travels. And I think it's worth remembering that, you know, it's a global food system, and changes, we have to be very conscious of the changes that we can make for the better and how it affects global systems. So JB, over to you. Going to do a bit of cooking, which is great.
Yeah, that's a very good point what you just say about food travels, like, and about big trends being put in place. Local foods, as we say, is always the best, but the system being put in place, and at the moment the food system is feeding people all over the world, and if we change the food system too quickly as well, those people won't be able to feed themselves. So that's a big to think of. Anyway, guys, you're welcome in Grow HQ. So this year I'm in the cafe at the moment. We don't have customers. We will have customers very soon. Yay! Everybody's happy. Hey, Conor. Yeah, in the kitchen over there. So that's good. So I just wanted to talk about two different things that we're doing here, being part of the Chefs Manifesto, and something we're working very hard on. First, it's zero waste, and to try to have a zero waste kitchen, to achieve a zero waste kitchen. I'm not saying that it's zero waste by any means, but to try to achieve it. That's the main goal. And then talk us very quickly as well about the future 50 foods. If you want to, maybe if Baba or Laura want to put the link on the future 50 food on the chat, would be great. It was a study to see what was the 50 most sustainable plant-based food in the world, and it's very interesting to see into it. So trying to use as much of those on site as well. So on zero waste, so what we're trying to do here, zero waste, is try to use everything that's growing in the garden. And if it's not usable, just be sure it goes back into the garden, okay? So what, for example, I have a nice turkey veg there for you, okay? Everybody certainly knows it, your chefy, celeriac, okay? But celeriac, usually, when you get it from somewhere, you lost already all that thing there, all the green stuff. So all the leaves there, they're actually coming 2 weeks after the celery season. So it's what we're using as celery at the moment. So we have all that's usually goes straight in the bin, okay? All that, and then we always being told as chefs to peel very widely the skin of the celeriac because it's lots of dirt to it. So we're just going to peel it with a knife, okay? Nice and fresh celeriac. It's just been picked yesterday afternoon by Richard there in our garden. So that's our celeriac, what the chefs are looking for, and that's what's going in the bin. Okay, so you see these are on weight, it's about a third, easy a third of the celeriac goes straight in the bin in the traditional kitchen. Okay, so what we're doing, so we're using the tops as celery, or we make celery salt with it. For example, you just blend it to some sea salt or fresh water and leave the salt dry off naturally, and it gives you sea salt for the rest of the year. Like a nice celery salt for the rest of the year. I'll use it for soups and slaws and salads and all that. What you can do with all the skin, and that works as well with sweet or turnips, all those big heavy skins. You wash them entirely nicely. So what you can do to be sure they're nice and clean, you can dip overnight in water. That kind of soften all the extra soil, even more than one stuck into the small roots in the bottom there. So we have so we wash that, grate it, and then last year we had over 35 kilos of celery skin that we processed in GrowHQ, and so that saved us 35 kilos of veg. Okay, just by celeriac skin. That's just one example of many. Okay, so what you can do with that, you can just season it slightly, put the yogurt, mustard, and then you get to chop a bit of the green inside, and you get what you can go straight away celeriac camoula in French. And but here I'm going to show you a slightly different trick. I think even more sustainable in the ways that you're not going to buy very much alone. So I'm going to use some of the celery salt. So we're talking about, to be chefy, about 3 grams per kilo of veg. That's the base of any type of crop. We're going to ferment it. Okay? So for any type of fermentation, we're talking about 3 grams of salt for 1 kilo of veg. So there you're going to rock it, or you can pound it, but I like to rock it by hand. I always like to put my hands and just go back to nature and the feeling of it. So what's going to happen there is, I'm going to show you what's happening. It's really, that release already all this juice. You see all that juice coming up there? So that's what you want it to happen. Yeah, so you wash it nicely for most of the moist that will come out. You see, coming out nicely there. You're just going to add a little bit of brown mustard seeds in it, or a bit of spice. You can put any type of spice you want in it, or just leave it plain and then spice it up later. So that's it. The most important there. You're going to put it in a glass jar or in the fermenting jars if you have, but I'm just going to show you just plain jar. Okay, so you just stuff all that in there as much as it fits. You leave about 1 to 2 centimeters on the top. Okay, for free. So you just press it down
until the juices are coming back up. So if you want to play it a bit more safe, you can always put what we call the fermentation stone on top, just to press it down. But I have another trick for that. You don't really need that. So we put all that in there. Little piece of parchment paper, and we press on top. So the goal here is for the cerelac to don't touch any air at all. So there you see, I'm not going to use the rubbers to seal it. I'm just going to close it without the rubber. Okay, so don't seal it fully because it's going to create some gas. And if you seal it closely, it's going to explode. I promise. That did happen to me more than once, and never again. Okay, so you don't seal it, but just close it to avoid any food. So you put that in a dark place. The most important is a regular heat, so not too hot. 15 degrees is the best if you can. Up to 22, it's okay. So a nice slow fermentation is always the best. So you can keep it from 1 to 4 months to ferment. And you just keep tasting time to time, you check with the more coming on top and stuff like that. But just keep it in the dark. Light is the worst enemy for any type of fermentation. Okay? So keep it in the dark in a steady temperature for 1 to 4 months. And you see the natural lactic acid is going to develop into it. It's going to become more acidic. After, so this one is done. I've done it about a month and a half ago. You see, it changed slightly color. It got softer, and shame you can smell it there. But we get the acidity of it, and that's usable hot or cold. And last year, then just with that, we saved over 35 kilos of free veg as such. So the using that was just an example, but using all the things I'm growing in the compost bin usually, like I always tell all my team there, before you put it in the compost bin, wait, think, and if you can find something, just ask. We talk together to try to find a way to use those what's called food waste usually. There's always a way to use them. And it does make sense to try to respect the grower, to respect the veg, and as well it makes economical sense as well. Like try to buy 35 kilos of veg, you wouldn't put them straight in the bin either. Okay, so that does make sense. What's the few examples there? I can show you. We have a carrot skin. All good?
Yeah.
Good, Laura?
Yeah.
A bit of tech for him. So, carrot skin, usually, so I dry them up, use them to garnish the soup, or when I roast the carrots, I put them back into it. Parsnip skin, very interesting. It's a slightly coconutty taste from it. So what I use it more kind of as a spice to flavor my curries. When I do a curry, I use the parsnip skins to bring the coconutty from it. Okay. One very good there as well is that's tomato stem, dehydrated and powdered. So tomato stem, if you smell it, it smells almost like an earthy green tea. Very, very good to use in all North African, as a spice for North African cuisine. So that's tomato stem. And there, one of my favorites. I don't know if you can see it. It does look and it does smell exactly like coffee, okay? That got inspired from during the First World War when there was no coffee in Europe. They were using chicory roots. They were terrifying chicory roots and they were using that as coffee. And so what we're going here, there's nice looking veg there, okay? You see, so that's salsified, but that's more as a chef is what you would call salsified ones. So maybe I have a straighter one, you might recognize a bit better. This one there, okay? But that's actually not quite a salsified. The salsified is white, and that's called Scosanoro
It's Spanish for black snake. I'm wondering why. So I peel the skin and I just put them in the oven for 200 degrees for about 15 minutes until they carve just before they burn. Leave them dry off naturally and then powder it. And I use that as a coffee base. Like obviously there's no caffeine into it, but it's a nice bitter taste from it. And you can use that to marinate whatever you want. Or to do, as Conor does, he does his beef pastrami marinated in coffee. Like it's just fantastic. And you can use that to do that. And that's all homegrown here. And from something which just gone in compost bin otherwise. And salsify, you have all those leaves as well to be used. So all those, you can do a pesto, soups, just chop them up straight into a stir fry or into a salad. They're very, very tasty too, like, and full of all the green leaves during the winter are very, very important. Full of antioxidants, full of vitamin C still, and all the things we need in the winter, even more in Ireland. We see the weather behind. All the vitamin C that we need to stay healthy, like, you know. So there was the food industry told us to eat a lot of oranges and lemons. Great, they taste good. Here we're growing lemons. I think I got 3 lemons in the year. So not enough to bring vitamin C to my 200 customers today at all, okay? But let's say in about that amount of leaves there, you have more vitamin C than in a whole lemon, okay? Or than in an orange. So we can grow our own vitamin C in Ireland, like, and lots of different minerals and stuff like that are all very, very good for you on that. That's a bit, so yeah, we were talking about biodiversity and resilience. That was a very, very good, the last webinar organized from the London Hub was fantastic. It was all about resilient foods. And that to us, that ugly thing there, salsify is a very important part of our sustainability system here, as it would be ready to be harvested now, but it will start in March. And March is what we call the hungry gap. Okay, so the hungry gap is when nothing at all comes out of the ground usually, but then we still have those to be able to serve and to cook if we store them in the ground. They're still in the ground for another 5 months from now. Okay, so they're very important. Like that, we still have food to serve in the hungry gap on site. So that's that. So I'm going to talk very quickly. I don't know, am I going to be on time? Am I?
Yeah, you're okay.
Yeah, I'm okay. So I'm going to talk slightly quickly about the Future 50 Foods, which that was a WWF study. It was sponsored by NOR. We get the money where we can. And so they shortlisted 50 foods would be the most sustainable. And there's plenty more outside that list we could list as well. But so they were talking about lots of seaweeds, lots of beans and grains, lots of cereals and grains, like all cereals, grains, and so like buckwheat, spelt. So that's plenty growing islands, and that us to try to as chefs to ask the grower to grow more of them, and the millet and fonio as well. So I don't know if you know what's millet and fonio. Fonio is a small millet as such. Okay, so millet it's a very old grain. The good thing about it can grow in most of climates. Okay, it's gluten-free, and little facts. It takes 10 times less water to grow than wheat. Okay, and it can be grown everywhere, except at the moment it's very difficult to find Irish millet, and even more on restaurant scales. Like I would be using here like 5 to 10 kilos a week, easy. And there's no farmers in Ireland who can bring me that at the moment. So it's at us as chefs to create that demand, and to bring the growers to do the right thing, and to do more the biodiversity. And the growers have started to grow it. We'll start to see those produce in supermarkets. and the whole food system is start to get fixed. So it's at us to change the habits and on that. So we'll have. So I'll show you a little bit about the millet later. I want to talk about so fruit and veg. The interesting ones are pumpkin flowers, even more the male flowers, which is on pumpkin plants and courgette plants. There is as many female flowers and male flowers, but each plant produces way too many male flowers, and they can be used in cooking. And these taste very good. On greens, lots of greens, and they grow right in islands, and we're not using enough at all. Beetroot leaves, kale, pak choy, pumpkin leaves, red cabbage, spinach, watercress, all those things, and and they're actually very, very good because they are, when they're growing, they're taking a lot of carbon from the atmosphere, and they bring back inside the soil. The mushrooms, nuts and seeds, lots of roots. So salsify is one of them. One very, very interesting is parsley roots. Parsley roots is almost like a celery, a celeriac, like, but very. As chefs, I love it, like, because it's very dainty, like taste of white radishes. So there's lots of different veg, and we are not using enough. Then we could use more on the future 53. So I'm going to just show you the millet. Just don't be afraid of those of the things you don't know. Okay. So millet, it's you can use it for savories, or you can use it for sweet as well. It's used in India a lot at the moment, but I think it could be used everywhere in the world. And it grows very well in Eastern Europe. He actually started in Eastern Europe, went into Spain, went in South America, went back to India. So the food travels, okay? But now it's time to bring back to Europe, I think. So the important things is just to first we're going to rinse it. So you rinse the extra, there's a little membrane on it, it needs to be rinsed so that it cooks better. And on top of that, this bit of dust usually built up on them, so you better to rinse it, it will cook better. So we're going to take a little bit to do our savory and for our sweet as well. Up. Yeah. So there for the sweet. So for the sweet, you could do like a rice pudding type of job, or you could make some type of cakes. Very, very easy. Okay. So I'm going to do an Indian version of a sweet millet cake. So a bit of turmeric. So turmeric used in India a lot, which is very good against cancer, for your liver, for your kidneys. It's a super medicine as such, you know. And there, and any type of milk you like, so you could use hazelnut milk, coconut milk, oat milk, which is very sustainable, all Irish now, you can find. So, and you're going to cook it off until so for the cake, it take about 25 to 30 minutes to cook off. Be sure that every single grain is completely opened up. I don't know if you cook quinoa already, but it's exactly like the same, okay? It does that. And for the savory, what we're going to do, we're just going to boil it with a bit of salt, with plenty of water. It depends the quality of the quinoa now, like, but it depends how you want it crunchy. If you like it nice and crunchy like me, cook it for about anything between 12 to 20 minutes, really. Okay, it's up to you to stop it whenever you feel that it's ready. Like, really. So I'm going to show you so you cook it in boiling water, you rinse it, cook in boiling water 12 to 20 minutes, and then you strain it, and that's what you're ending up with. It looks like a bulgur or couscous, so that can be served hot, cold, anything. So remember what I had there, I had a bit of celeriac leaves, and celeriac tops. You just chop that up inside. Up, we'll use a bit of salsify skins as well. So the food
would go usually straight in the bin, or you wouldn't even see it in your kitchen if you don't ask for them. For that, it's important to work with growers and not big veg suppliers who don't. You just get the. You need to deal straight with the grower to see whatever he can bring to you, and that you to ask him. It's just when you bring me beetroot, bring me the leaves with this, you know. So, touch of our own cider vinegar. Another cider vinegar, very good way to use all your apple peels, apple cores as well. It's very easy to do, and I think this year we end up with about 180 liters of apple cider vinegar here. So enough for the year, just about, I think. So a bit of a nice cold press Irish strip sirloin on that. Touch of our celery salt. It does that, and that's just a nice vibrant salad. You see, so you can use it. You can put any type of spices, anything you like in there. So use it as couscous or bulgur, as you know. You know, that's very nice to have. And for the sweet version, so you cook it until it's completely mushed as such, and you put it in a tray, and you leave it set in the fridge. Overnight is better, but only if you are acid rock. And then you'll end up with those kind of almost soft-ish cereal bars. And if you want to make it very chefy, then you take a bit of your parsnip skins and just crumble them on top like that to add an extra crunch. Bring more the coconutty part of it, like to bring the curry element into it. Okay, but that's that'll be a nice little snack for the morning if you make it slightly drier or part of a dessert. You know, but you can make it softer and use it as a rice pudding as such as well. So, see, I just wanted to show you here. It just put your mind into it. Is thinking more sustainably. Some people say it's difficult to change, and I've been done those things since years, and I don't see why we should change and all. But it's actually exciting to change. It's actually, it makes your brain working again as a real chef. Like when I'm going to write the menu here, I don't write the menu and then go buy my ingredients. I go in the fridge and or I talk to Richard, the grower, and say, what's there? And then we write the menu with what we have. And I think it's a way more exciting way to be a chef, as simple as, and to see food as food and not just as commodity to try to show off what we can do like such. Okay, so I hope that inspired you a little bit, and what we'll do later on, we're going to have a little talk with Conor now on the 8 thematics, the 8 Chef Manifesto thematics. But then we'll break out in groups later on, and then we'll talk to each other as we talk. We never talk with chefs to chefs. We're always there in our little corner, and we always keep for ourselves. But I think it's very, very important to the Chefs Manifesto. Chefs Manifesto is a community, and as a community, we should talk to each other, share tricks, share recipes, share knowledge, and it's like that we go further into our goals. And so, what I would like into will be great into the workshops later is just each of us to introduce ourselves, see where I'm at, what I'm doing, and then to share a bit of knowledge of sustainability. What do I do in my kitchen? What could I share with you? What are you doing in your kitchen? What could I bring this week in my kitchen to change straight away? Change is easy. Change is just easy. And bring all your young chefs in your kitchen, say like, don't put that skin in the bin. We'll do something. We'll do carrot skin crisps, and that'll be a garnish for a salad, and we look fancy. Okay. So I hope that was slightly inspiring to see what we can do with not much, and tasty food local together. So that's that. All right, Conor.
That's brilliant. Thanks, JB. And I think it's great to see the kind of practical examples of how a zero waste kitchen can work. You know, in terms of using absolutely everything like you had there, and I've had your Chirac skin remoulade. It's I love it. And, you know what I mean? It's great to be able to see easy steps in kitchens that changes can be made you know, and lovely tasty food. And it's about, as you said, it's about thinking slightly differently to what we might be used to, and really thinking about our end goals in fixing a broken food system. And I know, so we mentioned earlier about how we took the SDGs as a Chefs Manifesto and broke them down into 8 thematic areas, basically. And what I mean by that in layman terms is basically how do we look at the SDGs and how, which are quite, there's a lot on them. As I said, each of the 17 goals have sub goals, and there's a lot of reading, there's a lot of different ways and so on involved. So part of Chefs Manifesto, or the original goal, was to break that down into chef's language that can be shared, as I said, globally. So the first 4 I'm going to go through, and I'll leave JB then to do the second 4. So the first 4 was ingredients grown with respect for the earth. Second one was biodiversity and animal welfare, investment in livelihoods and natural resources, and reduce waste. And there are simple headings to kind of show, you know, what we can do in our kitchen. So, like, if we think about it, ingredients grown with respect for the earth, and that's back to knowing, as JB said there, it's about knowing where your food comes from. It's about knowing how it was grown, how it was produced. And it's not just that it's in season, it's also the farming practices behind it, you know, in terms of soil, in terms of biodiversity, in terms of not always that it's organic, but at least it's farmed in natural ways. And as chefs, we can play a huge role in that by just looking at our procurement, looking at what we buy. And I think JB hit something there, which always gets my chefs involved as well on when we're writing menus and writing dishes and so on. It's not about what I want to cook right now, because I think it'll look good on the plate or taste good. And obviously as chefs, that's what we aim to do. But it's about our carbon footprint as well. It's about, if I want to create a dish now, I need to look at what's in season now. I need to contact, you know, who's growing my food, where it's coming from, how it was grown or how it was produced. You know, when we look at animal welfare, as you spoke about, in biodiversity, which is the second thematic area, it's really about breaking down biodiversity in terms of crops and vegetables, but also in animal welfare. Like how is our meat? How is it reared? You know what I mean? We look at everything. Give you examples. We look at, like, obviously here in Ireland, throughout the summer months and spring months, say cattle, lamb, pork, and so on, that is free range, is grass fed. But then during the winter months, it's fed on grains and so on, because obviously grass is not growing. So for us, it's about going that extra bit and looking at what grains are they fed? Where does the grains come from? Are they imported from across the world? And if so, why? And trying to understand the food system better, because that's what ends up on our plates. And it's about taking that responsibility to really deep dive into our food system, as we spoke about. And that leads on to the third one as well, which is investment in livelihoods. And livelihoods is across everything, really. If you start at the beginning, the livelihood of the farmer and the grower. And to me, that's about, you know, ensuring that they're paid correctly for the work they do. I know, and as many chefs do, like the growers, the amount of work that they do, it's a 7-day week. You know what I mean? It's all weather. They're up early. They're finished late. They put in huge amount of work just to ensure that we get great ingredients. But not always are they paid correctly for this. And investment in livelihoods, to me, means ensuring that our food is followed through, the people that are at the beginning of the food chain are paid correctly, and that we can also help them. And in terms of helping them, investment in livelihoods is like, we would deep dive into waste that might be produced on a farm and looking at that waste and going, that farmer has no income for this. And that could be trimmings, or could be, you know, a crop that there was no demand for, so they couldn't sell it and so on. And as chefs, it's kind of our responsibility to go, well, what have you got, you know, that we can take and we can buy off you, and show that you get an income when in other cases you might not get an income. So it really is looking into that investment in livelihoods. But it's also, when we get to the kitchen, then the investment in livelihoods is in ourselves and our teams and everyone about us and our customers. when we invest in livelihoods, it's seen through the entire food system on how we treat each other, you know, and work ethics, and ensuring that everyone is treated equally, and also our customers. And what I mean investment in livelihoods, for me, that translates to me about, you know, showing our customers what a better food system is, educating them on ideas that they can in turn bring home to their houses and talk to other people about, and so on. So investment in livelihood kind of covers a vast area. And the fourth one is natural resources and reduce waste. And JB just had some very good examples there of how to reduce waste very practically and very easy in the kitchen. And once you kind of engage in a zero waste system, and I'm always saying this to people because on my journey getting into zero waste, at the beginning, I took my time and I looked at the first easy kind of fixes that will give us confidence to look at more, and look at reducing waste throughout your entire kitchen. It's very doable. And when you get into the frame of mind of reducing waste, all of a sudden you look at everything that you might throw out today and you look at it in a very different light. You kind of, you know, your brain thinks differently around food and how to use all of it. And that in turn, if you think about natural resources, so if we spend energy and water and so on in growing our food, be it proteins, be it vegetables, no matter what our food is that ends up in our kitchen and then in turn onto our plates, we got to look at the resources that went into that, and that's in terms of energy, water, and so on. And the way the planet is changing, that's not also always readily available. So for us to waste food in our kitchens and throw out food, there's a monetary value to it, but there's also a huge value in terms of carbon footprint and so on of the resources and energy that was used to grow that food. And this is how we broke it down. That's the kind of first thematic areas, and how simply we break them down into chef language. And obviously these are all available on the Chefs Manifesto website, where you can see these 8 areas and what's behind them. And JB, maybe you'd like to go into the next 4 there to give us a rundown on them.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, you went through the 4 thematic areas. Those thematic areas are so simple to read. There's only a couple of sentences on them. And then every time you do something into your kitchen, try to apply as much of those points as possible. And then you're onto a winner, like really, it's so easy to apply. So on the 5th point is the celebration of seasonal and local foods. I know it's a big thing. Everybody says it, but is it done all the time? And it's so easy, and it actually brings more creativity to the chefs. It brings more challenge. And when I Grow HQ, I'm not only celebrating the seasonal local food, I'm dictated by seasonality. So like when I have no tomatoes left, I have no tomatoes left, and they won't get any tomato ketchups anymore. And my customers know now, and they ask for beetroot ketchup. Even during the summer now, they ask for beetroot ketchup anyway, you know. But focus on plant-based food. That's the 6 points. So obviously, been proven that the carbon footprint on the plants, it's a way lesser than any carbon footprint on animals, on meats anyway. Knowing that most of the plants grown in the right way actually going to absorb some carbon from the atmosphere and bring back inside the ground. A very quick example, like in Grow HQ, we are at the moment calculating in the last 4 years how much carbon we put back in the ground only on our 3 acres, and it's huge. It's a full herd of beef, like the full herd of beef worth of carbon went back in the ground on 3 acres. So small changes makes a big difference. Education on food system and healthy diet. So that's us as chefs to educate and inspire the wider community. it's healthy, and how to become healthier, and how to fix the food system altogether. And sometimes it's a bit difficult to get the information ourselves. So imagine for Mary around the corner, what information she's getting. So I think the Chefs Manifesto is a great platform to get concise and very good information on all that. And nutritious food accessible and affordable for all. I know I've been one of them chefs, and cooking in fine dining is very important to inspire people. So that's not the point saying that you shouldn't do fine dining, and you shouldn't have 4 chefs to cook one dish to make very expensive and very high-end food. It's not at all what I'm saying, because that's important as well, to bring the trends in the right place if it's done correctly. But be sure as the chefs and the food system works, then the food goes to everybody, and then everybody can actually buy some food. These farmers, for example, the quinoa was became very popular about 7-8 years ago, and people they were growing quinoa for their own families, and South America mostly, and then because it became very popular in Europe and North America, the price went up, and people couldn't eat the quinoa they were growing anymore, because they had to sell it. And so those food systems, and we need to be aware that everybody can eat nutritious foods grown on their own ground. So that's the 8 points, and it's very easy to go through them to make our life as a chef easier, and to try to work in a better food system. Conor, I think you have a few guests to share with us.
I do, yeah. Thanks for that, JP. Yeah, so I have 3 chefs. So we're going to bring them in individually to have a quick chat, and I suppose give you a bit of background. These chefs are heavily involved in the Chefs Manifesto, and for me personally have really influenced me, as I said earlier, about focusing on elements of the Chefs Manifesto and how to implement them into the kitchens. And I think it'd be great to get them to have a chat to us about, you know, what they do in their restaurants, and how their teams, how they manage to get their teams on board, and the changes through the Chefs Manifesto and so on that they've done. And I'm going to introduce Chantelle. I'm going to unmute you there. Has to unmute. I think I've done that right.
Hi.
How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah, I know you're super busy. You're reopening tomorrow, is it?
We're reopening tomorrow, finally. So, yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thanks for making the time. I know how busy you all are. And I suppose the first thing was just to ask you about, I suppose, introduce yourself. And I know you have 2 restaurants on the go, one very new one, which kind of opened in the middle of COVID, and then had to close again, and now is reopening tomorrow. But it's also about the work you do, and I know you do a lot of work on right across the board with the Chefs Manifesto in your kitchens, but particularly you've done a push on plant-based diets, which I think you're really well known for, you know, in terms of London and eating and in Tradwells and so on. Can you give us a bit of an idea around your teams as well, and how embracing the kind of 8 thematic areas into a kitchen, how it works in practical terms?
Sure. So yeah, just introduction for those that I haven't met. I've got a restaurant in London called Tradwells, which is in kind of central London, which obviously has been massively affected by COVID, given that no one's going into central London anymore. And so I did the kind of slightly bonkers thing and opened another restaurant during 5 days before the second lockdown. But it's a temporary one, so it's a 6-month lease that I've got, which I am here now. Because I had the resource to do 2 restaurants, I wanted to keep people in jobs. I wanted to keep myself actively motivated. So that's the reason why we did that. And yeah, I guess for me, you know, even here probably more so because it's a smaller site, it's a smaller kitchen. I'm actually cooking myself, so really super seasonal. Probably over in both restaurants, probably about 70% of our menu is plant-based now, I would say. We used to have a much bigger menu at Treadwell's pre-COVID, but obviously just scaled that right back down. So for me, it was important that, you know, most of it was kind of plant-based. And I don't eat a plant-based diet myself, but for me, I feel that it's, yeah, I eat probably a veg-heavy diet because that's what I grew up in New Zealand. So I was surrounded by amazingly beautiful produce. And I think that's what kind of started my love for vegetables, really. Probably I was always a bit more interested in them than meat. So it's kind of a natural progression in some senses. I think what's been interesting in terms of, yeah, keeping that, having that in a commercial setting or a kitchen. I think it is about, you know, with the team especially, it's generally you see it when you have new people come on board. And I guess the waste part comes into that a lot as well, because a lot of chefs are kind of taught to just, you know, kind of that obviously there's waste of some particular things, but of other things it's not an issue for them. Whereas it is an issue for me. So it's kind of, you know, my rule is that anything we can eat doesn't go in the bin. So it's kind of training people, whereas I'd normally put the end of a cucumber or some peelings or something into a bin. It's like, actually, no, there is a way we can use that. So we don't do that here. And I think with the plant-based too, it's a bit like allergens in some senses. It's like you've got to treat it with that much kind of respect and consistency, because if someone, you know, thinks, well, actually this would taste better if I cooked it in butter, it's like, well, actually you can't do that because A, it's an allergen, and B, it's no longer plant-based. So it does take that education, but I think it's what I find really probably rewarding in a lot of ways is when the guys get really excited by creating something that's plant-based and that's delicious, and it's kind of like, wow, I can't believe this is plant-based. And I think it's just keeping that energy going, and, you know, wonderful produce really helps. I work with some small farms in Kent, so not that far away from London. I get deliveries twice a week, and I can't afford to get everything from there because it is a bit more expensive, but the things that I can really kind of taste a difference come from there. And again, that's kind of an exciting thing to do, and we know the story of to where they've come from, or, you know, how they got to us, which is also really important from a team's perspective, I think, to actually understand where the food comes from, because, you know, it's quite hard to do that in central London sometimes. So I think just doing as much of that as is feasible. It's not feasible for everybody, but I think for me, I've always said that, you know, in terms of the Chefs Manifesto and the 8 thematic areas, if you're doing one of them, you're doing something. You know, there's so many constraints operating restaurants and operating food service businesses that whatever you can do will help. And I think it's just important not to, if you kind of think of the big picture, sometimes it's too overwhelming. So I think it's kind of taking it bit by bit and seeing what you can do and how you can do a little bit more each day as things progress.
Brilliant. And I think that's really important, because you kind of hit the nail on the head there. I think that as chefs, if we try to implement 8 thematic areas in one go, the likelihood is we'll fail. It's really about, you know, starting with what you're comfortable with, and doing as best as you can. You might not be able to dip into all 8, but you might be able to do 2. Do you know what I mean? And as you said, it's making the changes, be it as small or little as they are, that in turn, you know, helps a global food system and so on.
Absolutely.
And how, which I always find interesting, how, and the reason I'm asking, because of a lot of your food is plant-based, and in Ireland we have this how would you look at it, customers, it's all about meat and beef, and, you know, we rear great cattle and so on. How is your customers, obviously I know how busy you have been, especially before COVID, so how is your customers' reactions been to this gorgeous plant-based menus and so on?
It's interesting. I think you do have the people that you know, really want meat, but also you have the people that are a bit willing to try something different. And I think, again, there's an element of, I guess, trust in some respects. I think if you can create that trust with your guests, that actually, you know, to trust us, we will make it taste delicious. I think that really helps. And I think, you know, a lot of people are trying to kind of cut back on meat, so maybe they do want it as a treat when they come out, which is fine. So I source my meat from pasture-fed organic farms, And for me, you know, the meat I put on the menu, I believe in that meat for being, it's on the menu for a reason. But I think it's also, I think if you can create food that's just as delicious and can stand up to the meat counterparts, then that's what's really important. I think it's that richness, it's the overall, I guess some people have said that they really enjoy eating my plant-based food because it has the same kind of properties as a meat-based dish, if that makes sense. So it's kind of looking at all that, you know, caramelization is a huge one. And I think that's, you know, I always give the analogy that we would never steam a steak because it would be disgusting, but we'd think nothing of steaming broccoli or cauliflower and just, you know, serving it, especially to children. So I think it's maybe taking the approach that you would take to meat or fish and applying that to a vegetable that you will then get the best out of it.
I love that, and I love that thought process about basically treating vegetables as you would meat dish and giving them the attention, because in a lot of cases they don't, and not the star of the show. They come second to meat protein base and so on, and that's brilliant. And I really appreciate, Chantelle, you joined. I know how busy you are, and I know you got to scoot off and get ready to reopen. Yay! It's great to see you again, and hopefully see you in London next year.
Yeah, you too.
All going well. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks for that, guys. So yeah, so that's Chantelle, and we're going to move on now. So Radhika, I think, if she's there. I saw you there earlier. So Radhika is based in India, and obviously Indian cuisine as a whole is very important around being plant-based. It's kind of the total opposite to us here in Ireland. With the majority of the food, obviously there's fantastic ingredients and fantastic spices and all, but plant-based diets take center stage. And again, Radhika is someone who has really influenced me in terms of how she looks into the history of food and biodiversity and ensures that you know, the ingredients she has, she's buying to make a difference, not just to her food, but also to the environment and so on. Is Radhika there?
Hi, Conor.
Hi, how are you? Good to see you. How are things?
Things are picking up, actually. They're good.
Brilliant, good. Are you, because I lose track of what's happening across the globe, are you back open now, or are you?
Yes, we've been open for 3 months for dine-in now, and we never closed for delivery. So we haven't actually gotten any rest time at home.
Okay. We've had plenty here. Brilliant. And I suppose the question, obviously, I know your work and I love it, and I know that you know, the detail you go into in terms of biodiversity and zero waste and so on. But maybe you could give us a bit of a background as well to you have quite a large team there in the kitchen. I've seen great photographs of them all looking happy, cooking away and all. And I'd love to know, and for everyone on the call as well, about, you know, implementing changes for the better into the kitchens. How do your team get on board, and you know, how do they embrace it, I suppose?
So it all started, I think, about 4 years ago when I deep dove into zero waste. Before that, it was about the ugly food movement. So we were always a zero waste restaurant, but we just didn't know how to actually implement it. But 4 years ago, I opened my second restaurant, Fig and Maple, and I think my team thought I was crazy because I would go into the restaurant, I would go into the kitchen, and I would start measuring the waste. And even though people do think that India is a plant-based sort of country, this is not actually true. We have approximately a percentage of 70% people who eat meat here, and which is actually not very well known. But because of the large biodiversity that we have, people usually have like that sort of generalization that we are a plant-based sort of country. But so when I started doing that, they were really curious, and I would do these dustbin checks where I would just take out things from the dustbin and be like, this is edible, this is edible, this is edible. And then I figured out that this is not really the correct approach as to, you know, like, okay, I've taken it out of the dustbin, now what? It's not something which we can use because it's gone in the garbage. So whilst the prep was happening, we started curating our menus around that waste. So if you, because we follow each other on Instagram, if you see my dishes, we have a lot of dishes which are made out of waste, but the guest does not really need to know that. So we kind of market it in a way, we make it palatable and we make it more accessible and more beautiful for our guests and for the team as well. Once they understood what I was looking for, there was so much that they got onto the plate because they came from such diverse backgrounds. They come from such different regions, and I truly actually believe that everyone, we have such rich cultures, and we were not conditioned to be wasters before. It was just something which happened over time. Urbanization and busy lifestyles actually got us to this point. So it was just about pushing my own team to go back to their wisdom, to their ancestral, cuisine, culinary heritage, if you may, and bring that back to the restaurant as well. And we started using that. One term which I'm really fond of is glocal. It's absolutely accurate for what we're trying to do. We are taking global techniques, we're taking knowledge from everywhere, but we're using local produce, for example, and created palatable, more appealing dishes.
Brilliant. I love that. And I suppose, and I love the fact as well that your end user, your customer, is not that it's unaware. I get the fact that your dishes all contain produce or flavors made out of food waste. And I think that's really important for people that are listening as well and wondering, how to market this. I know I've been called many names over the years, but one is, that's that chef that cooks from bins. And it's kind of, no, that's not the case. We're preventing food.
Exactly.
And I think that's important, yeah.
Conditioning. Actually, this was, I didn't ever think of this. It was the first presentation of the Chefs Manifesto, where I think Paul was presenting, and he said that the customer does not like words like vegan and sustainable and blah, blah, blah. I actually agree with that. Like every time I put out something about sustainability, everything's gone wrong. But it's a beautiful dish. People want to see that. People want to see how to create that. They want to know how to achieve that end result. We are still far away from the fact that the consumer is going to start caring for the environment or caring for where the food is coming from.
True. Yeah, no, absolutely right. And I think, as I said, because getting more chefs involved, I think it's sharing this knowledge or experience that other chefs have gone through in making changes in their kitchens and what they might come up against and so on in terms of customer feedback. And I think that's really, really important. That I even hate using the word waste. Yes, we market it or we label it as waste, but to me, it's surplus food. It's still food. And I think that's really important to get across to your teams and likewise to your customers in terms of not using the word waste so on a menu, but it's just, it's a flavor or it's an ingredient that's added to the whole dish. And I suppose and I always find this from my own experience, have your team in the kitchens, have you found that their mentality changes as well, that now that they think differently than they did previously?
Oh, 100%. Now they come up with their own ideas. So we have a dish called skinny chipping on the menu. It's basically skins of different sorts of vegetables depending on summer or winter. And the other day, and he's not even like high up on the ranks or anything. He's just a commie. He's just been promoted to commie too. And he came up to me and he said, "Chef, you know what? I have a great idea for dish with these broccoli stems." And my God, that dish which he made was literally like broccoli stem chips. And it was mind blowing. I was so amazed, not even because of the dish, but because that has changed. So if say dough goes bad, they create, they ferment the dough further with the dough which has gone bad. And it's amazing that they can do that now. And I don't even have to say anything anymore. So that conditioning, which has happened over the past 4 years, I feel like we can influence it to the guests through our menus as well. However, it will take some time.
Yeah, true. And I love that. I love the fact that everyone within our teams all of a sudden changes. A bit like we were saying earlier. I think once you address a problem, and in this case, it's around waste food, that you kind of almost recondition yourself to look at it differently. And all of a sudden, your teams. I mean, I have a fantastic large team that work with me across Ireland, but they come up with the ideas now. They're the guys that are looking and going, actually, you know what, we can use this, this, and this, and I'm going to ferment this or incorporate that. And it's really, I think that's the exciting part for chefs to get involved, is that, you know, you can really, as a community, but you also influence your team, and then all of a sudden they kind of take the reins and they kind of go with it and make changes that are necessary, which is really, really cool. And look, it's great. I talk to you all day. I love everything you do. It's brilliant to see you again. Hope everything is going well, COVID and so on. And thanks a million for joining us. Talk to you soon. And so by no means last, but our next chef, so Anahita, is also based in India. And again, it's another chef who's hugely influenced me in terms of biodiversity. I mean, as a chef, she really dives deep into ingredients, but also showcases on her menus hugely what is local to her, what is grown within India. And I'm sure she'd be delighted that JB had millet on earlier, because Anahita has done great work in pushing this fantastic sustainable grain more mainstream than it is. It's grown very well in India and so on. So Anahita, are you there?
Hi, I'm here. I'm on.
Hi, good to see you.
Hi.
How are things?
Good. How are you? I'm so glad to be here. It is.
No, thanks for coming.
Yeah, I know it's such a great, feeling to do this virtually. I wish we could have done it in Ireland. It would have been amazing. But we still do it. Yes, we still continue and we still do it.
Absolutely. And look, it's great to have you here. And I think if you could, like, similar enough, go through, I mean, you've done huge work around biodiversity and other areas, but it always stands out to me the amount of care and attention you put into just your core ingredients. Before you even think of a dish, you're concentrating on your ingredients first. And I think for me, and the Chefs Manifesto, that's influenced me huge as well, in terms of, as JB was saying earlier, it is about the end dish as chefs, obviously in flavors and technique and keeping our customers happy. But rather than inventing a dish that you want to cook, it's more about going back to the actual ingredients that are available. And can you tell us about how, I mean, you've done fantastic work in your restaurants, and I think it's about the changes you've made over the years, and also, again, your team involvement and getting everyone thinking slightly different about how creative they can be.
Okay, so hi everyone, and good evening from India. It's about 5 p.m. in India. So I'll just give you a quick introduction. I've been a chef for the last 12 years, studied in India, studied in London as well at Khandelwal. And I came back to India and I joined a restaurant, which I am part, a chef partner, which is called Soda Bottle Openawala, which is a restaurant which specializes in Parsi food and Bombay street food. And the reason is because my roots are Zoroastrian. So I am Zoroastrian, and the roots that I have are Persian. So Parsi cuisine is actually a mix of different cuisines. And Parsis are the people from Persia, and they are living in India currently. So the food is a good mix of Persian food and Indian food. It's about using a lot of local produce and a lot of local spices. And that's what I've been doing. The restaurant's been running for the last 7 years. And honestly, I think for chefs, when we start cooking and we're passionate about food, the first thing that we want to do is come up with a great tasting dish, because that's just satisfying. But I don't think we understand, and especially as young chefs in the industry, that we come into the industry, it's all about the recipe. It's all about getting the plating right or the recipe right. And that was the same thing for me as well. And this is about 6 years ago. I started doing a lot of research on different Indian grains and a lot more biodiverse ingredients. And that's when I started understanding that India it's like this amazing, rich culture with so much of heritage and food and cuisine, and so many different local regional cuisines that are in India, which are unexplored, which are not represented. There are so many spices that we have in our, our home kitchen. I mean, if I do have 2 minutes, I'll possibly show you, a little bit in my pantry and at, what we have at home. So what we really do in the restaurant is we represent a cuisine which was lost for a long time. And we showcase a lot of regional ingredients, local spices. So, the vinegar that we use is made out of sugarcane and only comes from one place in Gujarat. And, the spices that we use are made at home. My mother makes the spice mix, which is actually made at home, and she sources all the spices and, the ingredients. So it is, I would say what we've been doing is a lot of reading, understanding, learning, and also teaching our team, because they had no idea what the cuisine was. So I was teaching them a lot about, how are we going to bring back the cuisine? How are we going to plate it? How are we going to present it? How are people going to really enjoy this food for a very long time? And that's when I decided that I need to, dive deep into my own heritage, and ask questions like, why have we stopped eating millet? Or why have we stopped using a particular kind of local oil, which is something that, I've been asking a lot of people and a lot of family and a lot of friends. We have a range of oils in India. So sesame and coconut and peanut, mustard oil, obviously ghee is something that we use. Our kitchens, our heritage kitchens, our grandmother's kitchens are filled with these ingredients. But a lot of these ingredients in time, with globalization, with the kind of marketing that these refined oils or, fast food joints, we've been losing as Indians, and this is what I've seen, we've been losing a lot of connect with our ancestors and what they ate and what we, used to grow. And we've just, that connect, that break has actually made me think and want to dive back and be like, okay, you know what? This is what I want to do in my restaurant. This is what I want to personally, as a chef, study, learn, explore. And through my social media, that's where I talk about, ingredients and talk about, working with farmers, talk about biodiversity. It could be a whole range of topics. Anything that I read, learn, I would want to share that. So I do the same thing with my team. And I also believe that my social media family is like my team. So I'm constantly on the lookout for new ingredients, or it could be just the fact that I've gone and bought a bamboo toothbrush, just a reminder for people to tell them that, okay, you know what, I know you've got a plastic toothbrush at home, but it's never too late to change. So just small little things. I feel if you've got a platform, if you've got a voice, and you're a chef running a restaurant, or even if you're just at home running a home kitchen, there are things that you can do in your everyday life, which actually are happening, and they're not just talk, but they're actually happening. And that's when I constantly ask people that, when did you try something new? Show me what's in your fridge. Show me what's in your pantry. What are you doing with the leftover peels? We actually want to see more and more people getting hands-on and trying that out, other than just being like, I might like it or I might try it. People are scared, Conor. They are genuinely scared to try new ingredients. I remember making an 18-year-old have millets, and she didn't like it. She said, I don't like the flavor of it. I would rather have rice, or I would rather have bread. That's because we've lost connect with so many ingredients that our country is like. It's biodiverse. It's huge. It's beautiful. And I think we've just kind of lost that connect. And as chefs, and through the Chefs Manifesto, I have learned so much. And I've been able to research so much more and be like, you know what, these are your thematic areas. What is it that I can do from my country? What is it that I can do from my kitchen? And the more we talk about it, the more we learn and the more we can put into practice.
I love that. And I think the one word that really stands out for me there is the word connect. And that's what it is about. It's about reconnecting to ingredients and food that is, no matter where you are globally, that is native to you or has a history with you. And I mean, it's from a chef's point of view, it's also, it gives you more of a satisfaction as well. I mean, chefs in our nature, we are very creative. It's what we do. We take ingredients, you know, we get creative with them and we turn them into great tasting dishes. Hence, that's why customers come in the door. But I think surely you find as well the satisfaction, but also from your teams in the restaurants that, again, they must be really, you know, embracing this and changing this. And have you found as well that over time they're also thinking differently as well?
Yeah, so I think, like I was telling you, India as a country is very, very big actually on zero waste. As families, I have seen my mother, you know, saving glass jars that we might have, which have come, you know, as a family gift, or we have newspaper, which is reused and recycled in our own homes. It could be just a shopping bag, which has been reused and recycled. So as a community, as a country, I feel we are very, very pro zero waste. And we're constantly, you know, learning, we're constantly sharing that, but there's been this disconnect. And that disconnect is what we need to get back. We need to be proud of saving things, recycling things, and not be ashamed. Oh, you know, if I'm recycling this, some people think that, oh, why should I recycle it? I should just throw it and get a new one. But earlier, we used to repair things. We used to recycle them. We used to reuse them. And that's why we just need to get back. Just simple practices, everyday practices.
I love that, yeah, and it is that. It's about rethinking or re-looking back into history. A lot of the answers to a more sustainable future is actually in the past.
I mean, I saw a post which you had done, which was about supermarkets, where they wrapped a banana up. I mean, a banana already has a peel, and orange already has a peel. You don't need to wrap it up.
It's crazy. It's just so, like, yeah.
And I also, I mean, this is just honest consumerism. The more we increase our products, the more we have things available and conveniences in the market, the more amount of waste we're going to be producing. The lesser we use and the lesser we have around us, we're more conscious about what we're using.
No, 100%. And I suppose one good thing to hear, I'd like to hear from you is about, for everyone that's listening and you know, hoping to get involved and make changes in their kitchens as well. What is the one thing you could give them to take away from this? Like be it like to start somewhere, or where a bit of advice for chefs that kind of want to go on this journey, and maybe it can be a bit overwhelming when you start. You know, you're looking at your kitchen, you're thinking, wow, okay.
Give me just 1 second. Sorry, someone's at the door.
No problem.
I'm back. Yeah.
Hi.
So I was saying that this is just something I feel which is not only for chefs, which is just for us to kind of just go back to our practices, which are more sustainable. I mean, just using the word sustainable and actually not putting that in practice is, I mean, there's no point to that. So it's about us. How are we reusing? How are we recycling? How are we reducing waste? How are we promoting biodiversity in our kitchens? I'm just going to take you quickly to the kitchen, not doing a recipe or anything, but where is the camera change? So this is just a drawer in my kitchen, and this is just a spice drawer. And in India, you will find a lot of homes with a lot of different spices. And I just want to share with you, these are old recycled glass jars which have spices in them, different spices in them. They're not, nothing is in particular order, but they're just different spices that we use in our everyday cooking. And this itself would be about 40, 45 different spices. And this would be about 15, 20 different types of pickles and oils. So these are just some examples to show you that we can promote biodiversity in our own homes if we want to try. And
that's brilliant.
The only way we can do that is if we start implementing it and using it. You have to be passionate to use it in your kitchens. You have to be passionate to use it in your recipes. So the only takeaway I want to give is, please don't be scared to try new ingredients, to try new recipes, experiment in your kitchen. I'm sure you're going to love it. It's going to be a revelation. You're going to try things out. I'm sure if you don't like it, you can find ways to fix it as well, or maybe not try it again, but at least try it. And that way you can possibly help save a spice, an oil, a grain, a vegetable, which people have stopped eating.
Brilliant. No, thanks a million for that. And thanks for joining us today as well and going through in detail what you